Hey, how's it going, Juan?
Good. How are you, man? Thank you for being on this art segment.
Oh,
I
it's a
have a
pleasure.
yeah. I saw the charcoal drawings. They are amazing of Frida Kahlo. We'll get to show them after we speak for a few minutes. So I wanted to ask you for a lot of our youth out there who want to become artists. How did you become an artist and why? Because it's really tough to be an artist.
Yeah, I've been doing it since I was a little kid. Seeing my dad, he does fashion, kind of like fashion design, and he would do drawings, and I would see him draw, and it was something that I picked up on it, and he would try to show me how to draw. But I think my love of kind of like just getting into art was through comic books, and I did that
Yeah.
all through high school and stuff.
Give me 1 second. My camera's off. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Am I live, guys? Sorry about
Yeah.
that. Can you see me now?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Sorry about that. So you were saying that you love comic books,
Hmm.
and at what age did you start doing this? And
Oh
what's
man,
your
I think I started doing it when I was about, I mean, when I was three, just seeing like coloring books and trying to trace them. I guess that's kind of when it started, and just like my fascination with just drawings and cartoons, like any kid would have. But I think it must have been like when I was in elementary school when one of my friends told me how to draw comics the Marvel way. That really got me into art. I read that book a bunch of times and followed the instructions, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's amazing. Hey, so one of the things that happens a lot with youth and parents is that the parents say, "No, I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be a lawyer. I don't want you to be an artist because you're going to be starving for the rest of your life."
Mhm,
So, what kind of recommendation for a young artist watching you right
mhm.
now? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, like I think you got to do what you love, right? And it's always a plus if your parents support you in that, I guess, in that dream of you becoming an artist. Also, there's some misconception of the starving artist because there's a lot of, when it comes to art, there's just so many different things you can do with art. Yeah, there's gallery art where you paint and you put them on a museum or a gallery. But in my case, I'm an illustrator, so I get a lot of commissioned work. I do a lot of concept art, storyboarding. I've done a bunch of commercials, music videos, stuff like that, and just having fun. I mean, like I mentioned before, there's comic book art. Norman Rockwell was one of the most famous
Yeah,
illustrators around. Drew
yeah,
Struzan, who's famously done those Star Wars posters. He's one of my favorite artists. There's just so many different kinds of art that you know there's
that's
that
amazing.
could make you a
Yeah,
lot of money too.
yeah. So what can parents do to support a young artist? A lot of the times, our people, our gente in our
Hmm.
communities, they don't have money to be able to buy art supplies, and it's really expensive to buy art supplies. What can they do to support them if they don't have the financial means to do art?
Yeah, most definitely. I think when you slap that art, sticker on whatever product, it gets so inflated. So just finding different ways of getting those tools, starting off with like the basics, like a pencil and a paper. That because no matter what tool you use, um, the fundamentals are the same. Learning shape, learning composition, learning lighting, value. Those ideals are the same no matter what medium you use. Start off with that, you get good at that, and then once
Yeah,
you know what you want to do, then start investing little by little. you know um
yeah.
Art supplies are expensive, but you start off you know very
With
very small
pencil and
with whatever
paper.
you can.
Yeah,
Yeah, charcoal
yeah.
is very inexpensive, and actually the demo that I have for this segment was all done in charcoal, and you could buy charcoal. All of this could be done in under 10 bucks.
Wow, that's great. Hey, so the other thing is, you talk about, well, we've talked about
Mhm.
learning the rules and then breaking the rules.
Yeah,
So I met a lot of young people who say, "Oh, I don't need to learn the rules," and I
yeah.
sort of agree with them, but you have a different opinion
Yeah, of course. I think if you're gonna pick up anything in life, I think it's important that you know what you know the fundamentals before you start straying away from whatever, like from the rules. Like if there's certain things you're gonna do to your art, you have to be prepared to explain why you did it. You just can't get a brush and start painting without any fundamental knowledge. You have to kind of know what you're doing so that when if you have your painting in the gallery, people are questioning it. They're like, well, I wonder why did you choose this color or that color. You're like, well, because so and so, or
Yeah.
you know how to back it up pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Oscar, thank you so much for being with us. And again, this segment is to benefit the East LA Women's Center. And if you can donate $1, even $1, it will go a long way to benefit women who have fallen victims of domestic violence. Oscar, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for all the work you do, Self-Help Graphics. And thank you for teaching me how to sketch. So now we get to watch the two lessons that you provided for us. So please watch if you can. If not, log back on again and watch. Thank you so much, Oscar.
Thank you so much and enjoy.
Hey, what's up, guys? So, I'm gonna do a little lesson for you using charcoal. I know that a lot of people you love doing Frida Kahlo, and I guess in this session, I'm gonna be doing a portrait. I'm using specifically just using charcoal, something easy to obtain. I'm gonna show you the process, my process of creating a portrait from sketch all the way to like I guess a finished illustration, and then we could even go a step further and render it out using value. So the first part of these videos are going to be more focused on using guides and lines and shapes. The second part is going to be focused more on doing value studies and just having the portrait look like a 3D rendered person. Well, these are the tools that I use. Every time I use charcoal, I love to have General's charcoal pencils. So I have three different ones. I have HB hard, I have 2B medium, and I have 4B soft. All right, so another set of tools that I have are these charcoal sticks, and the purpose of these are for sketching because you could easily just erase it. I have a kneaded eraser in order to lift up some of the charcoal. You do this to clean it up. Just pull and this is the way that you clean it. A shading stub, for shading. Eraser, and I use a electrical eraser too. And white charcoal. A sponge. You could actually use like a cotton swab or anything cotton, or even a sheet of like paper towel. It would work fine. All right, so I'm gonna get started on this. Let me set up my reference picture. Okay. So like I said, we're gonna be doing Frida Kahlo today. So the first thing I start is I want to measure the distance between the head and the top part of my page. And I try to do it as fast as I can, because if you go really slow, you tend to overthink things, and then it doesn't even come out accurate. So right now I'm just not even too concerned about trying to get it perfect. Right now I'm just trying to place my guides using simple shapes, circles, parallels, just basic lines. Like this. Got the ear. It's almost like an oval shape. And it's okay to make mistakes right here. It's our interpretation of what we see. We don't want to exactly copy it, but we want to get close enough. So if something doesn't look good, just erase it with a kneaded eraser, or just rub it. Like all of these lines won't show up once we start sketching it out. So gotta get the eye line. So basically, this line right here is the middle of the face. We have a very symmetrical face. We have like this line that goes in the middle, and that kind of shows that the face is not looking straight at us. It's kind of at an angle. And then I have these guides right here as the eyes. And then this one right here, the nose, it's gonna be like right there. And the lips. Okay, so see, right now I'm just plotting, just trying to find it. Even using some of the shadows, I use those as guides, as reference points, because they become very important. And like I said, right now we're just trying to get a feel for this. Trying to get a feel for where everything is placed, like the placement of everything. I got the shadow that goes kind of like here on this side. Like this. And it's always about adjusting, moving the lines if they don't feel right. See, like this line right here, the initial one, now I'm gonna move it over here. Always measuring, looking at distances, like from the bottom part of the chin to like the collar where it starts, the fold of her blouse. It's like this. I really admire Frida Kahlo's art. It's pretty amazing to me, like all the kind of the abstract parts of her life and how she created, pieces of art with it. Okay. Okay. Usually I work on a toned paper, so this is not white. This is kind of like a gray tone, and it's perfect to work on this kind of paper because whenever I want to get like the highlights, I just go to my white charcoal pencil and I just start, using the highlights. So it's always good to start with a mid-tone. Even when I paint, I always try to start off with some sort of tone. I rarely start with a white canvas or a white piece of paper, or even when I'm working digitally, I always have to tone my canvas or my working space. It's always got to be some sort of tone. And using like a gray as a neutral color is perfect, especially if you're working in color. Yeah, but since we're using charcoal, it's perfect because we have like all the different tones that we're able to use. Okay, so I got my initial drawing like this. Okay, so now what I do is I will go ahead and shade it just a little bit. Even though the actual rendering and shading part will come after. Right now I just want to get like a feel of the structure of the head. Right now it's just capturing that. Like this. My reference. Okay. All right. Now what I do is I go in, get my fingers a little bit full of charcoal. That way I could just blend it in like this. You gotta use whatever you can as your tools. And right now I'm using my fingers as my tools. Gotta get that tone. And the cool thing about charcoal is that whenever you use charcoal, you always have to add and subtract. So you add with the charcoal and you subtract with the eraser. That's another tool that you use. So like typically people think that, you know, using an eraser, it's only, you know, to fix mistakes. But when it comes to art, you use an eraser as another tool. And specifically in charcoal, it applies perfectly because, you know, you go in and you start removing some of the areas that you're going to want to modify your values. There you go. Just a basic tone right here. Very general. You start off big, you know, very blocky. You'll work your way through. And I know this might be very intimidating for a lot of people, especially if you're new at art, but man, this is, you know, creating art is one of the, like, if you follow along, you practice every day, this is something very simple to actually do. It's just learning technique and just some of the rules that you have to follow. There is always a right and a wrong way to approaching art. And you know, you always learn something new. You know, there's tricks that you pick up on the way. There's artists that do it a different way, and you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna try it that way. And you know, you do that. Okay, got my. Now I'm gonna move to my pencil, and I want to just capture some of the areas that I actually don't want to erase once I start toning it a little bit more. And this is when you start getting a little bit more precise. You might even go a little bit slower. I think the eyes are the hardest part of a human, like to capture in a portrait. I think it's the eyes. If you don't get the eyes right, like, you know, you fail. I think that's what, as humans, we look, you know, we focus a lot on people's eyes when we talk to them. So that's like the hardest thing to do is capture someone's eyes. I gotta modify this eye because it's a little bit too much on the left. We have eyelids. So always have that darker side of an eyelid right here. And you know, whenever you create art, it's always observation, drawing what you see. Of course, you know, like knowing what you're drawing is also very helpful, but you know, it's always just knowing or just being very observant, you know, just being able to look at life and try to imitate it, try to capture the moment, the mood. Okay, so this one right here, I gotta modify it a little bit because I think it's lower right here. A lot of times it's easier to use a grid to draw up, from a portrait. You draw a grid on your actual photo reference, and you draw a grid on your paper, and then you're able to draw it piece by piece, segment by segment. It's easy sometimes to do it that way because you don't have to deal with trying to just you'll have a better, more accurate uh, representation of what you're looking at. So I gotta here. Life drawing and portrait illustration is probably some of my best. I just have fun doing these, just capturing people, capturing models. Life drawing sessions are my favorite. I've had those since art school. I just enjoy it so much. Like this ear right here, probably move it a little bit more this way. Right here. It's always about modifying it. Sometimes you catch the little things. You just try to capture it as best as you can at the beginning before you fully commit to whatever it is that you're painting, drawing, whatever. You capture those little mistakes at the beginning. That way, it's a lot easier to fix them, or you won't have an issue later on when you're fully committed to your drawing or your painting. In this case, this charcoal drawing, like I just want to be able to capture as much as I can, as best as I can. That way, it's just easier. I don't have to worry about this when I'm rendering it. Most of those decisions have already been made. I've already thought about them. Okay. There you go. Sometimes, like when you don't see something very well, you don't try to spend too much time on areas that are gonna be, too dark, or even though I know that the ear's right here, I really can't see in detail what's going on, so I'm not gonna worry too much about it. That's not gonna be my focal point. I don't wanna create something that's gonna drag too much attention or pull the eye away from what really matters, which is the eyes. Okay. There you go. Okay. There you go. This cool little scarf going on right there. Okay. Usually when I do these drawings before I even start rendering it, I just try to capture as much as I can, you know, hatching and doing these cool little suggestions of shadow. And for a quick drawing, like you could even just call it, you know, this could just be your sketch, you know. This is good enough to be a sketch right here. Call it a day. You know, that's why I've decided to make this into two parts. The first part is your drawing like this, where you could just take it, you know, push it enough that it's a pretty cool drawing. You know, you're still, you know, try to capture the likeness and just practice on using line and you know, hatching. Just, it's good practice. There you go. So this would be, you could actually call this, you know, a day. Like just you're done with your drawing. Like if you're a beginner, this is, you know, this is good enough. This is a portrait that you know you've captured the likeness. Here, and you're done. So on the second part of this video tutorial, I'm gonna show you, or video demonstration, I'm going to show you what I do in my process to start adding some value, like detailed value to this sketch. You know, just to push it even further, try to get as much as I can out of it. So now my next step after this is basically to, what I do is I get this, I get some of this powdered charcoal, dab a little bit, and I just start adding it on some of the areas. It'll like clean it up a little bit, but it's gonna add some tone. What I like to do is I try to remove as much texture as I can. You know, I want to make it smooth. So at this point, I'm gonna just freely start, you know, even adding it on the background. You know, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't look good right now, because we're gonna come back in and we're gonna fix it later. So right now I'm just toning it a little bit, removing some of the unwanted lines. Still kind of see the drawing underneath, and that's why it's important to use HB pencil or a 2B pencil, because it'll stay. I don't do it to the point where it's impossible to erase, because I could still lift some of that charcoal, but it's good enough that I could tone it and I still have the basic drawing underneath. There you go. So it's like nice and toned. Just try to make it even. There you go. All right. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start using my eraser. So I'm just paying attention to the light, to the values. Obviously in this photo reference, I have they have she has the light coming from this side, so that means everything, all the planes that are facing the light are going to be lit up, and everything that the light doesn't hit, it's going to be in shadow. So in this photograph, they used a soft light, so all the shadows are very nicely transitioned from shadow to light. So it's got to be smooth, like a really smooth transition. The only hard light that you see, or the hard edges, are right here along the back side of her. There's a light that bounced behind her that creates a really nice contrast between her and the background. It separates her from the background. Okay, so I'm just like cleaning it up a little bit. And the cool thing is that you could actually mold this to whatever shape you want. Like this. And then clean it up a little bit more. Like that. See a little teeny little piece right here. There you go. Yeah, just paying attention to where the light hits. Like I was telling you, what I was saying before in the first video, the first part, is that it's all about observation, just drawing and capturing what you see. And sometimes you could take your creative liberty and heighten something that you want to heighten. And if you want to make something more as a focal point, then you could by all means go ahead and do it, as long as if that's your intent. The drawing is very satisfying to me. There you go. There you go. So now I'm going to go ahead and start getting I think I'm going to do my 2B pencil, and I'm just going to start making some of these areas a little bit darker, more pronounced. Just like this. And we have this like part of the eyelid that always gets, like if the bottom part of the eyelid has shadow, like right here, then this part, the top plane, is going to be light. So it sort of goes like this. Trying to get the tear ducts right there. Yeah, try to get those lines very, very soft. Her famous eyebrows. Very iconic of her. This. There we go. You know, you could take 30 minutes, 40 minutes to do a drawing, or you could take hours to do a drawing. You know, depending on how long or how much you really want to work on it. Sometimes you could overwork a drawing. You know, I personally love drawings that are kind of sketchy still. You can still see the sketch lines. That's some of my favorite art, you know, just being able to see the process, because I feel that, you know, a lot of artists could, you know, you always see a lot of finished work and we're always wowed by it. But, you know, you could take months to do a really beautiful painting. But, you know, to me, just being able to see the process, the sketching, you know, all those lines, solid drawings, you know, I just love that. I think I love it as much as a finished drawing, just being able to see like a sketchbook with all the mistakes the artist makes, you know. So the light is hitting this way, so you know that's why I'm focusing on some of these shadows on the bottom. And also it's all about value. Like there's some areas that are darker, some are not that dark, you know, so you don't want to overdo it either. You know, I just do it very soft when I'm doing these, you know, hatchings. Yeah, just gotta get it cleaned up a little bit. And now this area right here is gonna be a little bit darker because it's the area that least the light comes in. Like it doesn't really have that much light coming in through here or hitting this part of the of her of her neck. So it's the least exposed area. I'm gonna come back in with a different kind of charcoal on that area. Right here, I'm just gonna slowly do a nice transition between the dark and the shadow. And then the hair. Hair is just a big shape. Like I'm not gonna try to draw every single strand. It's more of a suggestion. Like, I'm not gonna spend a lot trying to draw something I don't see very well in this reference. And it's true in life too. You don't want to draw every single strand. You just want to capture the basic shape of the head and the hair. And obviously, I could keep working on this for a very long time. So I'm gonna come back in and start using some of this white charcoal, and maybe let's try this one right here. Hopefully it's not too dark. This is compressed charcoal, and it's a little darker. And right now I'm gonna blend it, so it's all good. It looks kind of funky right now, but once I start blending it, it'll be okay. Now I use some of this, like this little sponge. Like this, just blending it, just removing some of those really harsh textures from the charcoal stick, and just pushing the charcoal as much as I can outward. And it's okay, like this little piece right here, I'm gonna erase it. So like I said before, you could use charcoal as a push and pull. You push the charcoal and you pull with the eraser. You pull some of that charcoal out. You could actually lift some of it if it's too dark or whatnot. Okay, gotta get my 4B pencil. Might have been a little bit too much right here, but just lift it. Like that. Then you could also get like one of these little, I guess the little swabs or whatever, and just blend it. Just very gently. This. There you go. And I'll come back in with my pencil and just hit some of those areas, and should be should be good. There you go. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in with white charcoal and just start hitting those areas where the light would hit the most. You don't want to overdo it, just a little bit. Just trying to take care of those values. See, when you use light and shadow, you create volume. You push things toward, you push things away. So right now, I'm adding some of those areas that are closer to the light, and it really gives it like that illusion that it's a three-dimensional uh, portrait and a two-dimensional surface. So that's pretty much my process of creating a portrait illustration. This is my interpretation of it. And just a hint right here of the pattern of her blouse. Like, I'm not gonna get too crazy detailed here. Just a suggestion, because my main area is like right here in this part of the illustration. Everything else is just a hint, a little suggestion that there's something there. And that's it. That's a pretty quick portrait illustration.
Being with us. Thank you, Oscar Rodriguez Leyva, the artist. Today's art segment is to benefit the East LA Women's Center please make a donation if you can. Like I said, even $1 will go a long way to help women who have fallen victims of domestic violence. Up next, we have a break for 1 hour. It'll be films, short films, and other content. And at 2 o'clock, we have Veronica Alvarado with NELM Marketing for the Wellness segment. Please join Veronica at 2 o'clock and then come back to visit me at 6 o'clock with Kiko Velarde and his son Elijah Velarde. Will be discussing his short film, The Shooting Star Salesman, and Elijah's critique of whiplash. Thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you enjoy our segment.